1997 and 2004, swine flu of 2013 to 16, SARS-CoV of 2002-4, pandemic of 2013, MERS-CoV since 2012, among various other zoonotic diseases, depict a specific telltale sign of spillover was largely increased industrialization and urbanization, which has been precipitated by greater human wild animal contact and depletion of natural habitat of animals. The present crisis has found us at a critical crossroad. On one hand, there has been an adverse impact on socioeconomic activities, loss of jobs, recession in economy, acute economic crisis. Yet on the other hand, as the Environment Minister of Japan, Shinjiro Koizumi, has warned, this desperate need for economic revival would often lead to a neglect of ecological sustainability, especially in the post-COVID-19 scenario. It is to address this critical double bind, on one hand between ecological sustainability and on the other hand with the need of economic development, and perhaps also to hint at the way ahead, that we have organized the present webinar. Now, I would request Dr. Ashwin Kumar Manna, the Reverend Principal of Khejuri College and the Chairman of the present webinar, to deliver a welcome address to us all and to the participants. Dr. Manna, please take over.
Hello. Hello.
Hi, Principal, sir. You are audible.
First, I congratulate Department of English and Department of Physical Education, along with IQAC coordinator Dr. Gautam Dandapat, for this seminar. You all have arranged a webinar during this crisis of COVID-19. Then I congratulate and welcome Professor Satpati, very learned person, and he has also worked about different diseases and economy of the society. Our webinar is COVID-19 and sustainable development in the Indian perspective. Those who joined our this webinar, all other dignitaries and delegates, and our beloved students, I congratulate everybody. আমাদের এই ওয়েবিনারে যে বিষয়টা রাখা হয়েছে যে কোভিড-19 সাস্টেনেবল ডেভেলপমেন্ট এবং সেটা ইন্ডিয়ান পার্সপেক্টিভে, স্পেশালি আমি তো এক্সপেক্ট করব যে ইন্ডিয়ার পাশাপাশি বেঙ্গল, ডক্টর রঞ্জিত সেনগুপ্ত তিনি বলেছেন যে এই যে এনভায়রনমেন্টের ব্যাপারটা একটু টাচ করেছেন, যে আরবানাইজেশন এবং ডিফরেস্টেশন ইত্যাদি এগুলোর কারণে কিছু জুনোটিক এই যে মাইক্রোবস বা ভাইরাস এরা অ্যাটাক করছে সেভারাল টাইমস, ডিফারেন্ট ডিজিজ হয়েছে আমাদের, সোয়াইন ফ্লুর কাছ থেকে শুরু করে নানা ধরনের বিভিন্ন সময় হয়েছে। এই যে আরবানাইজেশন হচ্ছে, ডিফরেস্টেশন হচ্ছে বা সি এক্সপ্লয়টেশন হচ্ছে, রিভার এক্সপ্লয়টেশন হচ্ছে, এগুলোর কারণে এবং তার পাশাপাশি যে মাল্টিপল এগ্রিকালচারাল ক্রপ কাল্টিভেশন হচ্ছে থ্রু আউট দি ইয়ার, সেই ল্যান্ড রেস্ট পাচ্ছে না এবং সেখানে ইনডিসক্রিমিনেট পেস্টিসাইড এবং কেমিক্যাল ফার্টিলাইজার ব্যবহার করা হচ্ছে, যার ফলে কি হচ্ছে যে সেখানকার ইকোলজিটা নষ্ট হচ্ছে, ফলে অ্যানিমেল কাছাকাছি চলে আসছে। আজকে আমরা খুব পার্টিকুলারলি আমরা যদি দেখি এরকম একটা এক্সাম্পল হিসেবে, আজকে দাঁড়কাক কলকাতা শহর বা ওয়েস্ট বেঙ্গলের শহরগুলো ছাড়া আর কোথাও কিন্তু গ্রামাঞ্চলে দাঁড়কাক নেই।
হ্যাঁ স্যার, আমি ইউটিউবটা হচ্ছে না, আমি দেখছি।
দাঁড়কাক দেখা যাচ্ছে না। জলের আমাদের যে ওয়াটার এরিয়া রয়েছে, সেই ওয়াটার এরিয়াতে সেভারাল স্পিসিস অফ ফিশেস, যেটা ইন্ডিজিনাস ওয়েস্ট বেঙ্গলের, সেই সমস্ত মাছগুলো এক্সটিংক্ট হয়ে গেছে, আর অসংখ্য প্রজাতি এখন এন্ডেঞ্জার্ড। রক্ষা করা, আর তাছাড়া এর পাশাপাশি হ্যালো,
ইয়েস
হ্যাঁ স্যার, শোনা যাচ্ছে।
স্যার, শোনা যাচ্ছে। হ্যাঁ, শোনা যাচ্ছে স্যার।
ঠিক আছে। ডিফারেন্ট স্পিসিস, বার্ডস, ফিশেস এবং আরো অন্যান্য নানা প্রজাতির অ্যানিম্যাল, সে মাইক্রো অ্যানিম্যালের কাছ থেকে মাইক্রো অ্যানিম্যালের কাছ থেকে ম্যাক্রো অ্যানিম্যাল, তারা কিন্তু এন্ডেঞ্জার্ড হয়ে পড়েছে, যার ফলে কি হচ্ছে সেটা ইফেক্ট পড়ছে আলটিমেটলি হিউম্যান সোসাইটির উপরে। আমরা অ্যাব্রাপ্ট একটা জাম্প দিয়ে আমরা ক্রপ গ্রোয়িংটার উপরে খুব জোর দিয়ে ফেলেছি, একেবারে সেই পাঞ্জাবের রেভলিউশনের মতো আমরা কৃষিটার উপর খুব জোর দিয়ে ফেলেছিলাম, যার ফলে কি হচ্ছে সেটা আমাদের উপর একটা আঘাত এনেছে, একটা এই যে ইকোলজিক্যাল ব্যালেন্স সেটা নষ্ট হয়ে গেছে। আর কি হচ্ছে না, বিভিন্ন ইন্ডিজিনাস স্পিসিসগুলো জায়গায় আমরা সেই ইন্ডিজিনাস স্পিসিস না নিয়ে এক্সোটিক স্পিসিসগুলোকে আমরা ইন্ট্রোডিউস করার চেষ্টা করেছি। যেমন মাছ চাষের ক্ষেত্রে আমরা দেখেছি আমাদের দেশি মাছগুলো হারিয়ে যাচ্ছে, কিন্তু আমরা সিলভার কার্প, গ্রাস কার্প, আমেরিকান রুই, তিলাপিয়া, মনোপিয়া ইত্যাদি এই সমস্ত মাছগুলোকে ইন্ট্রোডিউস করছি। তারা এসে কিন্তু অ্যাপারেন্টলি একটা প্রফিটেবল জায়গায় আমাদেরকে পৌঁছে দিচ্ছে, কিন্তু তারা এখানকার ইকোলজিটাকে একেবারেই নষ্ট করে দিচ্ছে। সেই বিষয়টা হবে। আর প্রফেসর সৎপতি আছেন, তিনি ইন্ডিয়ান পার্সপেক্টিভে এর সাস্টেনেবল ডেভেলপমেন্টটা কি করে চালিয়ে যাওয়া যায় এই কোভিড-19 পিরিয়ডে। 7 লক্ষের বেশি মানুষ মারা গেছে সারা পৃথিবীতে, প্রায় 215টা দেশ একেবারে অ্যাফেক্টেড হয়েছে। এই অবস্থায় আমাদের এটা নিশ্চয়ই একটা চিন্তার কথা। তবে আমরা হয়তো এটাকে একটু সাবধানতা অবলম্বন করতে পারি, এটাকে কিভাবে কাটিয়ে ওঠা যায় চেষ্টা করতে পারি। খুব শিগগিরই কোভিড-19 ভাইরাসের একটা প্রতিষেধক তৈরি হবে, সেটা আমরা এক্সপেক্ট করছি। কিন্তু ম্যালথাসের থিওরি অনুযায়ী বোধ হয় টাইম টু টাইম যখনই একটা অপটিমাম লেভেলে পৌঁছবে একটা পপুলেশন, তখনই একটা তার ধ্বংস অনিবার্য, এবং সেটাই বোধহয় শুরু হয়েছে। টাইম টু টাইম আমরা এটা দেখেছি যে কখনো বন্যা, কখনো মহামারী, কখনো অন্য কিছু বিধ্বস্ত হয়ে গেছে হিউম্যান সোসাইটি। ঠিক এটাও বোধহয় একটা আমরা, যাই হোক, আমরা এর একটা সুপ্রভাতের খোঁজে থাকলাম। আমরা প্রফেসর সৎপতির কথা থেকে তার যে দিশা তিনি কিছুটা আমাদের দেখাতে পারবেন সেই প্রত্যাশায় আমি থাকলাম। আমি সবাইকে ধন্যবাদ জানাচ্ছি এবং সেই সঙ্গে প্রফেসর সৎপতি এবার তার বক্তব্য, তার লার্নিং স্পিচ দেবেন, আমরা সেটা শুনবো এবং নিশ্চয়ই আমরা এনরিচড হব। আমি সবাইকে ধন্যবাদ জানাচ্ছি এবং পুনরায় প্রফেসর সৎপতিকে ওয়েলকাম জানাচ্ছি তাকে অ্যাড্রেস করার জন্য।
স্যার আমার একটা কোশ্চেন আছে স্যার।
হ্যাঁ,
আমার কোশ্চেন আছে স্যার।
হ্যাঁ বলুন।
আমি উত্তম বলছি স্যার।
হ্যাঁ বলো।
বলছি স্যার, আপনি বললেন, আপনার শুনলাম আমরা ভ্যাকসিনের জন্য অপেক্ষা করছি, ভ্যাকসিন মানব দেহে ছড়িয়ে দেয়া হবে, কিন্তু পরবর্তীকালে আমরা মানব দেহে দেওয়া হলে হয়তো আমরা কিছুটা মুক্তি পাবো, কিন্তু এই প্রকৃতির যেসব পশু পাখি তাদের দ্বারা আবার সংক্রমিত হব না তো? সেইটা আমার একটা প্রশ্ন, এই প্রশ্নটা।
উত্তম স্যার,
হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ,
আমার মনে হয় যে প্রফেসর সত্যজিৎ তো বক্তব্য রাখবেন, আমরা
আচ্ছা,
তখন না হয় লাস্টে একেবারে প্রশ্নগুলো নেব, তখন তাহলে আমরা একটা কোয়েশ্চেন অ্যান্সার সেশন করতে পারবো আর কি।
আচ্ছা 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 আচ্ছা, ঠিক আছে, ঠিক আছে, থ্যাংক ইউ, থ্যাংক ইউ। হ্যাঁ 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 হ্যাঁ, আচ্ছা ঠিক আছে।
সেটা আমরা তখন আমরা এই প্রভোকিং কোয়েশ্চেন্স, উই আর ওয়েটিং ফর দ্য প্রভোকিং কোয়েশ্চেন্স, and thank you Dr. Manna for the thought provoking initiation, especially the Malthusian suggestion that you have provided. We would follow up on this. Your words of encouragement mean a lot to us. Um, the coordinator of internal quality assurance cell of our college, Dr. Gautam Dandapat, has been a guiding force to us all. Now I would request Dr. Dandapat to address us and encourage us all in our endeavor. Dr. Gautam Dandapat, please share some thoughts with us.
থ্যাংক ইউ রঞ্জিত। আমি আমার কথা শুরু করার আগে রঞ্জিতকে আর একটা কথা বলি। রঞ্জিত, ইউটিউব লাইভ স্ট্রিমিংটা একটু দেখো, ওটা ভাবে কাজ করছে না।
আমি ইউটিউব লাইভ স্ট্রিমিংটা দেখছি, আমি মানে বলেছি টেকনিক্যাল সাপোর্টের ব্যাপার।
নমস্কার সুধী সত্যি মণ্ডলী। আজ খেজুরি কলেজ, শারীর শিক্ষা বিভাগ এবং ইংরেজি বিভাগ এবং আইকিউএসি এদের যৌথ উদ্যোগে আমাদের খেজুরি কলেজ একটি ওয়েব সেমিনারের আয়োজন করেছে। ইতিমধ্যে সেমিনার সংক্রান্ত বিষয় আমরা জানিয়েছি। আজকে এই ওয়েবিনারে উপস্থিত আমাদের শ্রদ্ধেয় অধ্যক্ষ মহোদয় ডক্টর অসীম মান্না মহোদয়, আমাদের সঙ্গে জয়েন করেছেন আমাদের অনারেবল জিবি মেম্বাররা। প্রেসিডেন্ট সাহেব হয়তো এখনো জয়েন করতে পারেননি। আছেন খেজুরি কলেজ পরিবারের সমস্ত সদস্য, ছাত্রছাত্রী, শিক্ষাকর্মী বন্ধুরা, আর আমাদের সঙ্গে জয়েন করেছেন বিভিন্ন কলেজ এবং ইউনিভার্সিটির অধ্যাপক অধ্যাপিকা, গবেষক গবেষিকাবৃন্দ। আমি সকলকেই আমাদের খেজুরি কলেজ আইকিউসির পক্ষ থেকে শুভেচ্ছা ও অভিনন্দন জানাচ্ছি। এখন পৃথিবীর গভীরতর অসুখ এখন আমরা জানি, যেটা নিয়ে আমরা বাধ্য হয়েছি এই ভার্চুয়াল জগৎকে বেছে নিতে। ভালো লাগছে না আমাদের কারুর, আর এই না ভালো লাগাকে একটুখানি ভালো লাগায় যদি আমরা নিয়ে যেতে পারি, আমরা যে কাজটা করতাম আমাদের প্রতিষ্ঠানে বসে থেকে আমাদের স্টুডেন্টদের সঙ্গে, সেই একাডেমিক আলোচনাগুলো যদি একটুখানি আমরা শুরু করতে পারি এইভাবে, আমরা দেখতে পাচ্ছি সারা পৃথিবী ব্যাপী যে গভীর অসুখ ছড়িয়ে পড়েছে কোভিড-19, আর এটিকেই আজকে আমরা আমাদের বিষয় হিসেবে বেছে নিয়েছি। এটি দিয়ে আমাদের খেজুরি কলেজের ওয়েবিনারের যাত্রা শুরু করছি। আজকে আমাদের প্রথম ওয়েবিনার। আমরা বেশ কিছু ওয়েবিনার পরপর আয়োজন করতে চাই। আইকিউসি সর্বতভাবে সমস্ত বিভাগ এই নিয়ে আরো বেশি করে উৎসাহিত করতে চাইছে। সবাই এগিয়ে আসবেন এবং একাডেমিক এই আলোচনাগুলো শুরু হবে আমাদের, এই আশা আমি রাখবো। আমি যে জায়গাটায় একটুখানি বলতে চাই, আমাদের এই খেজুরি কলেজ ছোট্ট কলেজ, প্রত্যন্ত অঞ্চলের কলেজ, কিন্তু আমরা এক পরিবার হিসেবে কাজ করে চলেছি। আমরা কলেজের উন্নতি কল্পে, যেমন আমাদের গভর্নিং বডির প্রেসিডেন্ট তথা খেজুরি বিধানসভা ক্ষেত্রের সম্মাননীয় বিধায়ক, তিনি আজকে আমাদের এই ওয়েবিনারের প্রধান পৃষ্ঠপোষক। আমাদের অধ্যক্ষ মহোদয় আছেন, আর আছেন আমার সহকর্মীবৃন্দ। সকলের সম্মিলিত প্রচেষ্টায় আজকে আমরা এই ওয়েবিনার অনুষ্ঠিত করতে চলেছি। আর আমাদের ডাকে, আমাদের আহ্বানে সাড়া দিয়ে প্রফেসর এলেন সৎপতি, তিনি আমাদের আজকে প্রধান এবং একমাত্র বক্তা হিসেবে একটু পরেই তিনি তার কথা শুরু করবেন। স্যারকে খেজুরি কলেজ আইকিউসির পক্ষ থেকে অভিবাদন জানাচ্ছি। স্যার আমাদের আহ্বানে সাড়া দিয়েছেন, বলতে রাজি হয়েছেন। আমরা সকলেই এই সেমিনারের কোয়েশ্চেন শুরুতেই আসা শুরু হয়ে গিয়েছিল, অনেক প্রশ্ন আমাদের, আমরা কেমন আছি, আমরা কেমন থাকবো, আর আগামী দিন কেমন আসবে আমাদের কাছে, সবটাই স্যারের আলোচনা উঠে আসবে নিশ্চিতভাবেই। কোভিড-19 সারা বিশ্বকে গ্রাস করে ফেলেছে। আমরা শুনলাম একটু আগে, আমরা জানি সকলেই, প্রত্যেকেই অবগত আছি, প্রায় 7 লক্ষ মানুষের প্রাণ কেড়ে নিয়েছে ভয়ঙ্কর এই ভাইরাস। সবটা দিক লক্ষ্য রেখে আমাদের আগামী দিনে আমাদের সামাজিক অবস্থান কি হবে, আমাদের কর্মসংস্থানের কি হবে, আমাদের যে সামাজিক নৈকট্য থেকে এখন আমাদের অনেকটা দূরে থাকতে হচ্ছে তার কি হবে, এই সমস্ত বিষয়গুলোকে নিয়েই আমাদের এলেন সৎপতি স্যার। তিনি আলোচনা তো করবেনই, এনভায়রনমেন্টে এফেক্ট কি হচ্ছে বা কি হতে পারে, সবকটা বিষয় উঠে আসবে। আমি অধীর আগ্রহে আমরা সকলেই অপেক্ষা করছি। আমি আবারও আমাদের খেজুরি কলেজ আইকিউসির পক্ষ থেকে সংশ্লিষ্ট সকলকে, আজকে যারা অংশগ্রহণকারী এবং যারা এখনো অংশগ্রহণ করতে পারেননি, তাদের সবাইকে আবারও আন্তরিক অভিনন্দন এবং শুভেচ্ছা জ্ঞাপন করছি। সকলেই আমরা অপেক্ষা করছি অধ্যাপক এলেন সৎপতি স্যারের বক্তব্য আমরা শুনবো। আমি রঞ্জিত কেমন মাইক্রোফোন দিচ্ছি। ধন্যবাদ।
ধন্যবাদ ডক্টর দণ্ডপাট। Dr. Dondapat, professor and associate professor in the Department of Bengali. পৃথিবীর গভীর অসুখ, গভীর কথায়, he is quoted quite aptly. Now we move on to the center point of our webinar. I would request Professor Lokhinarayan Satpati, Professor of Geography and Director, UGC HRDC, University of Calcutta, to elucidate upon the topic of our webinar. Professor Satpati's research has persistently focused on climate change, hydrogeography, development, and urbanization in India. He has not only dealt with geomorphic hazards, flood and soil erosion, but has traced the critical connection between ecological change and human urbanization and socialization. His studies on various flashpoints of crisis, Jongal Mahal, Damodar Valley, Sundarbans, Ganga and Ichamoti riverine systems have repeatedly addressed that double bind of ecological preservation and development. I once again request Professor Satpati to take over and please address us on the present issue. Professor Satpati.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I think I am audible.
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Yes, sir.
Let me make it a full screen. And can you see the presentation? Can you see the presentation?
Sir,
No.
Not visible?
yes, the presentation can be seen if the pin is pressed on. Uh,
Yes, I have done it.
yes, yes, sir. We can now see it. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So I am really grateful to the authority of Khejuri College, especially the Honorable Principal Sir, all the faculty members, members of the governing body, the non-teaching staffs and students, and the esteemed participants joining from various parts of the country, mostly from our own state. So really we are facing a problem, that is a pandemic of novel coronavirus, and at the same time we have certain goals in our mind that we have to achieve in a targeted manner by the year 2030. So under this situation, how these goals are going to be achieved or whether they will be delayed, so that we have to critically discuss, and what should be the alternative pathways in that
Hello, sir.
sense, so we can
ইউটিউব তো
discuss.
চলছে কিন্তু খুব
So
স্লো।
let me proceed with
এতজন
this
একসঙ্গে এসেছে এই নেটওয়ার্কটা পাবে না,
photograph
ব্রডব্যান্ড নেটওয়ার্ক
that
আমি যেটা
a
একটু
spotted Malabar
একদম
sireh.
স্পিড ভালো হয়।
This was
তাও
last
আসছে।
seen in 1990s in Matpayur, a town in the
এখন
Kozhikode
দেখুন
district
ডিলেতে
of
চলছে,
Kerala.
ঘুরে ঘুরে চলছে, এখন
Kerala is
সব
always
ছবি
in a
দেখা যাচ্ছে
news,
ইউটিউবে।
either as a great achiever, we are going to see it later on, that, that, that Kerala is an achiever in terms of literacy, in terms of
আচ্ছা
COVID control, and also in the healthcare, and the highest achiever in terms of sustainable development goals that we are going to see later on. But at the same time, you can see that in Kerala also, the pregnant elephant was killed, and this sort of animals, they are coming from the jungles to the urban areas. Sometimes it may be in the question may comes that this is perhaps good that wildlife is coming to our place because we are now
হ্যাঁ
caged and they are free.
তো
But
হচ্ছে
at the same time, we should question ourselves
যে
that
দুজন একসঙ্গে একটা
are not their territories
নেটওয়ার্কে
these
চলবে,
were not perhaps their territories, and
কানেকশন
we have pushed them out
কলেজে
to
যেরকম
the
কানেকশন
jungles,
আছে এখন
and now they have got the opportunity to come onto the streets
হচ্ছে,
which
কিন্তু
were
আপনার দেখুন
earlier
এখন
the
ডিলেতে আপনার
jungles.
ছবি ক্লিয়ার।
At the same time, there may be another question that perhaps they are not feeling good in their own habitat now, which is
না
squeezed by the human
ছিল
activities, and all the animals, they are struggling to survive in their own habitats, that is the limited jungles.
বাইকে নিয়ে
So in this
যত
way,
আছে।
man and animal conflict, it is everywhere, not only in our
আচ্ছা
country,
ঠিক
in almost all the countries,
হ্যাঁ
wherever the development is going on,
হ্যাঁ মিউট
and
করে
our so-called traditional development, either they are caged in the zoos or they are confined within certain pockets of jungles. Now, regarding this COVID situation also, uh, Gautam Babu, Ranjit Babu has already pointed out that zoonotic viruses, yes, because of this habitat loss and our food habit, human beings are omnivorous. And that's why human beings have made their food security very good. But at the same time, with the food security, we have invited some of the viruses which are the natural hosts in the lower pHs. Now they are coming to us and they are getting mutated and then spread from human to human. So this is definitely a crisis that, and that can be linked to habitat loss also. So how all these issues can be connected, that is we are going to discuss today. Now you see, for the last about 7 months, since December to this July or August, throughout the world, most of the countries, they are at one point of time or other have been locked down. And perhaps After the Second World War, this sort of uh, situation has come, and this sort of widespread situation perhaps never came, that throughout the world all the countries had to be locked. And this COVID has a cascading effect on the society, economy, the global politics, and all that. Whenever the crisis will be over, or if it is not going to over immediately, whether the vaccine will come or not, whether we have to rely on the palliative care. So definitely our economy is going to face severe crisis. And with the economic crisis, definitely the global politics will also heated up, and finally their social implications will be very, very high, especially on the margins, the people living at the margins.
তারপরে মুই নিজস্ব আমি নিজস্ব না
Now,
আমি নিজের একটা আলাদা
now
পৃথিবী রাখি
we we have locked ourselves, and this is perhaps an ad hoc option. That means the physical distancing, although sometimes it is called the social distancing, but never we are socially distanced. It is the physical distancing that is required to reduce the rate of infection so that it can be controlled vis-a-vis the healthcare provisions. And then a kind of new normal is coming. It is emerging. And from our transport-based mass gathering to communication-based distant interactions, whether that will be the new normal, we have to think about it. And virtual infrastructure, they are getting prominence. And here also, I think some kind of political economic change we are going to look into. Many of the manufacturing companies, they are shutting down and they are incurring huge loss. But those who are providing communication based virtual platforms and e-commerce, e-businesses, their profit is very, very high. For example, you can see at one day Amazon's income was $14 million in one day. Similarly, Facebook and many others, the Google, they are profiteering, and on the other hand, the companies like our own Tata and many others, they are incurring losses. So there will be a change in the balance of power in the economic scenario, and definitely the global order is going to witness a new kind of order in the post-pandemic, or if the pandemic continues, then in pandemic. So it may be in COVID or post-COVID situation, but whatever it may be, the problems will be faced by those who are at the margins because they don't have the bargaining power. So a new normal is coming, and this new normal word was, the phrase was coined during the Great Recession in the US in 2007 to 2009, and now another terminology has come. It is called the Great Lockdown. In the same context, we can see the world in a different perspective. Now the world is more flat. It is not a round world, it is a flat world. Because everyone is connected to everyone and at real time. But at the same time, the world is very much volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. So who is playing in a what way? The Trump cards, we don't know. How China is reacting, how US is reacting, how India is going to definitely things will be very, very complex situation in future. And the geopolitical hegemony, it is shifting. Earlier it was in the Central Europe historically, then it shifted to US, and then to China and global south, because in the south we have certain advantages, the demographic advantages. But the earlier industrial revolutions, those revolutions were mainly based on the natural resources. But we are entering in a different kind of industrial revolution, the fourth industrial revolution or IR4, where the ingredients, the processes, the products, they are going to be different. So the global and national economies, the drivers will be mainly on the basis of data. So data and information processing are going to fuel the economies in future. And you know that since 1990s, when most of the world was opened up, particularly the global south was opened up to the north, because this was part of the GATT agreement. And with that, the knowledge economy is proliferating leaps and bounds, and intellectual property rights is coming up. Earlier, knowledge was mostly free. Even today, we proud to feel that we should impart knowledge free. It should be free of cost, and government and philanthropic organizations, they should come forward to finance the education and knowledge creation, knowledge dissemination. But when it came in the intellectual property regime, then you can see that how our API scores are going to be affected, and it has already been affected, that we have to publish in the Scopus Index journals. And who are controlling the Scopus Index journals? We are creating the knowledge, we are writing it, we are submitting it, reviewing is also done by us, and it is free of cost. They are publishing and they are selling to us, and they, by the way, they are just getting the profit. You know that the new education policy has come, and if you discuss it, dissect it threadbare, then definitely you can find that how the Americanization, that means the capitalistic mode of production and control, the hegemony is coming to us, and we have to think in a different manner that knowledge is going to be a commodity, a sellable commodity in future. And this Anthropocene, it had started since the Industrial Revolution, the year one, but more prominently after this was Second World War, and the Anthropocene has tremendous impacts on the landscape. So in the stratigraphy, even if the human beings are going to no longer, they are going to be there on the face of the earth, if the human species extinct, their signatures will be there in the form of the dams, the canals, the embankments, and many other structures. So this pandemic is perhaps a gap in the Anthropocene or a break in the Anthropocene, and we are going to see later on that how man and environment relationship is philosophically can be explained, and then what we have learned from this exercise. So if you can see that during the last about 11,000 years, only since the year 2000, the population growth is very, very high, and it is a kind of hockey stick scenario. The curve is just like a hockey stick, and that has become possible with the technological innovations and ensuring food security to human beings. So food security doesn't mean that food sovereignty. Food sovereignty is different. Sovereignty means what was available earlier, those should be sustainably available. But now, what Principal Sir was telling, that earlier the species were available, but now those have been replaced by exogenetic species. So this is not at all a food sovereignty, it is basically food security. Food security means somehow we are getting the amount of calorie that is required, but with that calorie, what type of food is we are taking, and how those calories lead to the disease factors, the morbidity, those are really, really a very, very big question. So now the fourth industrial revolution is going to be on digitalization and automation and data exchange. So many of the skills those we are using today, many of the jobs that we see today, perhaps within the next 20 years or maybe 10 years, those will be no longer there. So we have to reskill our new generations, and for that we have to reskill ourselves. We have to learn to unlearning our old skills, and we require new skills to adjust with this industrial revolution. One very good example is that earlier we were accustomed with the age-old tradition to impart knowledge in a classroom environment, and we feel free to interact with students. It is not the interaction verbally, but also the non-verbal interactions. That is very good for a healthy discussion with the students among the peer groups. And education is not just information sharing; it is an overall holistic development of the children. But in this pandemic situation, somehow we are trying to continue our business, and you can see everywhere from registration of land, property transfer, to our banking transactions, to our various purchase of the commodities, and even our food and all that, the medicine supply, and now we are imparting lessons to the students. So a kind of new development has taken place. So if this going to stay, this is definitely order of the world by the year 2040, because the generation Y or generation Wi-Fi, they are very much accustomed with new technology, and definitely by the year 2030 or 2035, that this educational technology will play a significant role, and our traditional infrastructure. Hello, can you hear? Hello, hello, can you hear? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay,
Sir, you are audible.
okay, okay. Thank you. So by the year 2035 or 2040, what today we are stating that they are new normal, but perhaps those will be the normals. But this COVID situation has carried it forward to us, and we have accelerated our change, the transformation from a slow process to a very fast process. And the world, the first world countries, although now first world, second world, third world, these are not at all the good nomenclatures. So the global north and global south, now there is a kind of tussle going on, and this is a very subtle, but how we are going to affect, we have to think. One example I can give you that in the Make in India initiative, that perhaps we are encouraging our young population, because demographically we are in an advantageous position, because our population median age is around 29 years. So huge number of youth population is there. Earlier, we used to train them in our IITs and many other institutes of higher education, and they used to go to the foreign lands, and there it was a kind of body shopping. But now, these population, they are going to work in our country, but the profit may be going to the other countries. So because they are going to invest in us in some of the institutions, some of the industries which we cannot think of. For example, is there any company or any uh, system that can compete with Microsoft or Google or say Facebook? It is not possible. So in that way, perhaps they will open their franchisee in our land. You can see that earlier, by the year 2013, some talks were there that some of the Ivy League universities, some of the European universities, they are going to open up shops in India. But this has another time has come that perhaps in the new education policy, maybe they are going to open their shops in India and they are going to give quality education in virtual mode. So where we are going, definitely we are going to face crisis unless there is a complete restructuring in future. Maybe these are good or bad, we have to think of on that. Now in the Anthropocene, I have said that since 1750s, if we see that during the last 250 years, all the curves are converging at a point near the decade 2000 and 2020 around. So carbon dioxide concentration, population growth, then the average surface temperature and loss of tropical rainforest, GDP growth, species extinction, number of motor vehicles. This COVID has also increased the personalized motor vehicles. So the pollution is going to come up if this continues. This lockdown has definitely given a respite on air pollution. But this is a very, very temporary phenomena. And if the and physical distancing maintained, then please off your microphone. So in that situation, the number of motor vehicles will increase. The
Please,
personalized, the personalized,
please switch off your microphone. Professor Satpati is speaking.
the number of motor vehicles will increase and definitely the emissions are going to increase. So the ozone depletion, right now ozone has somehow it is healed because of some other things. And foreign investment, these are all increasing. So some of the issues they are increasing, but at the same time, please mute your microphone. Yes. Okay, please. Yes. Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, the contradiction is that in the Anthropocene, we have increased the pollutions, the emissions, the loss of the habitats, extinction of the species, and the growth of human population, growth of consumption, growth of GDP, and all that. But we are also in a position to appreciate that we don't need that kind of world where everywhere injustice is prevailing. And injustice in the term of the hegemony between one nation to another, then the rich and poor, the haves and have-nots, the mass exploitation of the people and resources, the over-exploitation and degradation of the commons, the common resources like our rivers, the lands, the air, the forests, and also the biotic world. But we are looking for a kind of world that we want where the people will end their poverty and there will be no hunger and people can live with dignity and equality. And that will ensure a prosperity for fulfilling lives of harmony with the nature. So, long back, Rabindranath Tagore in Avatar Sankat, the crisis of the civilization, he has clearly pointed out that if we go on, if we go on torturing the nature, definitely the nature will pay us in the same coin and in a higher magnitude. So prosperity is not for some people. You know that right now only few families and few business class people, they are controlling the total wealth of the world. Less than 2% of the people, they are controlling more than 95% of global resources. And the other people, they are just struggling. But isn't that they are also having the right to live properly with the basic minimum standard of living. Otherwise, the world can never be peaceful. So, fostering peaceful, just, and inclusive society that requires some kind of aid of poverty and prosperity. And that is possible only through partnership, not a competition. The cooperation is very, very important. And we have only one earth. If we go on increasing our consumption behavior in the capitalistic mode of production, by the year 2070, we require another 2 Earths. Right now, we have already crossed one Earth. It is 1.5 Earth. So, but we have only one Earth. So, where from the another Earth will come? So we have to think that let us discuss on it that we have to change our lifestyle because in the COVID situation, we can sustain with the minimum. So in the normal situation, whatever we consume, that is definitely extra. So this is the learning. And this learning, we call it stop and go. We are going to discuss that also. So now coming to the Sustainable Development Goals, you know that it started since 1972 with the Conference on the Human Environment at Stockholm. And from there, every 10 years and also in the mid years, there is a type of global meeting that we call them Earth Summit, where the man and nature balance is reviewed and tried to be renewed so that some corrective measures can be taken up. And this 1992, the Rio de Janeiro conference, the sustainable development, it was very, very powerful where most of the nations, they agreed to look back and the climate change and biodiversity, these were the two important issues that came up and the agenda for the 21st century with the uh, uh, action plans were developed. And again in 2002, the Johannesburg Sustainable Development Summit, this was the Rio Plus 10, and then at again Rio de Janeiro 2012, this Rio Plus 20, this sustainable development became a key word. That whatever we have so far done since the first industrial revolution and particularly after the Second World War, those were not good for the humanity. So let us explore some other possibilities so that our future generation can live in a better life, in an inclusive life. So earlier there was a Millennium Development Goals also starting to the year 2000 for this millennia, that is starting from 2000 to 3000. It's a long term, but sustainable development goals are relatively short term targets to be achieved by 2030, and 170 countries they agreed on these. So finally, 17 sustainable development goals were finalized to encompass almost everything on the earth. And that could lead to transform our world that we want to live in a way. So the first and foremost is no poverty. If you see, in Indian context, that when India became independent, our total population was roughly 50 crore, and our poverty ratio, the percentage of poor below below the below the poverty line was now by the year 2020 it is around 20%. But now the total population is 130 crore. So by absolute number, earlier it was 25 crore, now it is 26 crore. So do you think that our poverty has come down? The statistics government sometimes use in percentage figures. That is good for them. Sometimes that percentage of literacy has increased by 10 or 20, poverty has come down by 200% like that. But in terms of absolute number, it has not decreased, rather it has increased. And if we see in terms of the global standard, global purchasing power, then our population 80% is still under poverty. So if they are poor, they don't have any surplus money for any kind of investment, and that's why the poor remain poor with the poverty cycle. And this is the reality in our countries, not only in our country, in many of the global south, the African countries, in the Latin American countries, and also in our South Asian countries. So poverty is linked to hunger, and food should be a birthright, because nobody knows. Our birth is just a chance. It was not never a choice. So life is basically a matter of chance and choice. So whenever it was a chance that whether I am going to go in a poor family or in a rich family, that is not in my hand. So it is the responsibility of the welfare state or the elected government to ensure there should not be any poverty and no hungry people anywhere. And they should be given the clean water and air, and these should be birthrights. So these are all should be ensured fundamental rights. As you know, in our Indian Constitution, right to life is under section Article 21. Now, there is another clause 21A that includes that life support systems are also included as life. So these food and then water and air, that should be, that those are actually included as a right to life. And also this quality education and good health, the preliminaries. Yes, the new education policy is talking about below 18 years, they have been kept under the right to education. But God knows whether that will be given or not, and whether the owners will be given to the guardians and not on the state. So we have to look into that also. Then gender equality. Gender is really an issue in the COVID situation, particularly if you see that many of the organizations, the NGOs, they are, and even the Ministry of Family Welfare and Social Justice, they are continuously advertising that there should not be any kind of violence against the fair sex, and also we have to take care of the very elderly people and the very young people. So gender doesn't mean that only women. Gender means whoever, either the male, female, or transgender, they should have the equal rights, and this equality must be ensured, which is not there anywhere. So clean water and sanitation in the WASH program, you can see that this is a very important program. And if there is no water, that means no sanitation is ensured. Particularly in the villages, you can see that many of our girl students, they don't get the amount of clean water during their menstruation, and unhygienic condition is responsible for different kinds of diseases. Affordable and clean energy is now a demand, a right. Then decent work for the economic growth, because right to work, that is also a right, that should be a right. Industry and innovation in the infrastructure. Innovation is key to success. It is not that innovation means only the IITs. Innovations can take place anywhere. Even the young people in a classroom of 50, if a good teacher can allow questioning, the raising the questions among the students. Maybe 49 stupid questions may be raised, but at least one question may come, and that question may surpass Einstein's theories in some way. So, innovation is key to any kind of development, and innovation may not be restricted for production of goods and services, that may be for social infrastructure development also. Administration and governance, those can also be linked. So overall inequalities in terms of economic inequalities, political inequalities, social inequalities, and our intellectual inequalities. So inequalities are everywhere, and we can reduce. And if it is a just society, definitely that requires justification to everyone. Otherwise, it is not sustainable. Cities and communities. Cities are and towns are said to be the drivers of economic growth. But at the same time, if you see the Indian cities, they are just the exploiters of the rural areas, and they are sometimes maybe called atom bombs, sometimes they may be called the malignant tumors, and the even within the cities also there are the slums and different kinds of injustice. So cities are not inclusive in that way, and they are producing lots of problems, lots of pollutants, and they are just discharging it either in the atmosphere or in the soil or water, and that is going to through the rivers. They are also going to the oceans and seas, and the aquatic ecosystem is also affected. So responsible consumption, what I was talking about, that in the COVID situation, now we are consuming very responsibly. So within very 2-3 items or bare minimum we can sustain. So if that is possible, definitely from our normal at least 25%, definitely it will be good one. And all our consumption patterns, they are linked climate action. So if the climate change continues, and in the Anthropocene, the anthropogenic forcing, it is not the natural forcing, that contributes much to the global climate change, either in the form of the temperature change or the extreme climatic events like the Ayla or maybe Bulbul or Hudhud, Filene, or maybe this Umpun. So they are, or maybe extreme drought conditions or floods. They are all just the outcomes of climate change. Then life below water. This is also important, that technology is now permitting us to locate the fish shoals on the oceans, and a heavy catching of the fishes are now going on. And even the smaller ones, those which are not required, non-harvestables, are also brought to the land, and they are just lost. So extinction of some of the species, they are maybe linked to overfishing in the coastal areas. And this is because the fishermen community, they don't have alternative employment opportunities. Similarly, if you see the Sundarban region, the people, they go to the forests, risking their lives, and to the estuaries to collect the crabs and beans. But actually, there is no other employment options. Either they have to leave their land and to be migrated to other cities or in our cities, and the cities may not accept them. They just sometimes reject because their skills are not up to the mark to be accommodated within the cityscapes. So whenever they are rejected, they become slum dwellers or tenement dwellers, or just create nuisances. So skill development at in situ level, at the suppose there are agricultural laborers and the marginal farmers, they depend on agriculture for a period of time. Not all lands can be cultivated throughout the year. So cultivation, the agriculture and industry. So agro-based industries and household industries and linking it with the market through cooperative systems or maybe some incubation centers or other link-ups that will create some goods. So panchayats must have a very positive, they should have a positive role to play, a catalytic role to play, and the academics, the administrations, the politicians, they should sit together from time to time to chalk out the programs and targets for the local levels, for the village level at least. Otherwise, those people will be impoverished. And life on land, I have already talked about that habitat loss is connected to the species extinction, and they are also responsible for this release of various types of viruses. You know that there are millions of viruses, and only 2 to 3% of the viruses are known to us. And if all these viruses, they are released from the cryosphere, from the soil sphere, or from the lower creatures, the animals, the birds, they will find their hosts in human beings, and ultimately human morbidity will increase. So finally, if we take all these sustainable goals together, definitely that will give us a peaceful environment, a justified environment, and for that, strong institutions are required. Strong institutions means from the family to the state. Everywhere, if it is a responsible institution, then only it is possible. And that is possible only through partnerships, cooperations at global level, at national level. So in our federal structure, if the states and center, they don't work together, and if someone feels that I am the elder brother and I can do anything, and if any state that sees that I am always being deprived and I should not connect with the center, it is not that who is running the center or state, which political party, that is unimportant. The important is that all people, they are the citizens of the country, they are citizens of the world. So everyone has the right to live in a better way. And for that we expect from the politicians, from the administrators, from the global leaders. It is not that the leadership comes from the politics and from the administration. Anyone can be a leader, and in that sense, a good partnership can develop at various levels. So let us come to the SDGs, whatever it has been done by NITI Aayog. So taking a leaf from the Sustainable Development Goals from the United Nations, our National Institution for Transforming India Aayog, the earlier Planning Commission, they are also trying to develop certain methodology, and accordingly they have ranked our states. Now let us see the first report. NITI Aayog released its first report in December 21, 2018, and this report is said to be the SDG 1.0, and the baseline report was in 2018, and out of the 17 SDGs, 13 were possible to for generation of data, because data is not it is not possible to get data from for all the SDGs, because some of the issues are there where you cannot get the data at lower level. Maybe at the country level the data is available, but at state level also it is not possible to get. Forget about the district level or block level. So whatever, if we see what was the position, yes. So methodology was that collecting the raw data, then target setting by the year 2030, what we want to achieve. That means the achievement should be 100%. Then the data has to be normalized. That means either it should be ratio between or percentage between 0 and 100. 0 means no achievement, 100 means full achievement. then goal score, and goal scores are just like our GDI or like this, or a human development index sort of thing. So normalization process or NDVI like that. And then finally the composite scores. So all the SDG 1 to 17, if they are having 100 marks each, then which state has achieved how much, and finally what is the average. So accordingly, in 2018 report, if you can see that some of the states they fared well. So these states, some of the like Assam, uh, uh, yes, Karnataka, Himachal, no, it is not Assam. Karnataka, Himachal Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, then this Chandigarh, Puducherry, like that. So they are the relatively better performers. And India as a whole, the index was, the average was 58. And three states, the Himachal Pradesh, Kerala, and Tamil Nadu, they fared well. And among the Union territories, Chandigarh had a very good score, about 68. Now, let us see what is in 2019. Yes, in December 30th, 2019, this SDG 2.0 came, and out of 17 SDGs, 16 were taken and data were available. So India's score was, I'm coming later. Yes, it is not clearly visible. So aspirant, those having the score 0 to 49, and in some of the categories, like say SDG 1, the poverty, some of the states, say for example Bihar, they are just aspirant. It is not backward. In these days, we don't tell anyone in a harsh manner that handicap word is not used, rather differently able. It is a better terminology. So instead of backward states or backward districts, right now we are using aspirant states or aspirant districts. So similarly, performers, front runner, those who are better than the performers and they are going to achieve in future, so they are the front runners, so they are some sort of better achievers. And finally the achievers, and in that way this Goa and Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Sikkim, Puducherry, they have come. Yes, Kerala with 70 score, then Himachal Pradesh, and why they are coming in the top, and India's score is 60. So in 2018, India's score was 58, and 2-point increase is definitely a good increase. Now if you see the states on the basis of the goal wise, so no poverty, Tamil Nadu, Jammu Kashmir and Ladakh. This doesn't mean that poverty is not there in Tamil Nadu. Expected at a satisfactory level of say more than 75% achieved means we have achieved it. So accordingly, the zero hunger, it doesn't mean that 1% or 2% is there is no hunger. Yes, maybe at some mohalla there may have, but the reports are very, very low at a state level. But at block level or panchayat level, maybe the situation may be slightly different. Then health-wise, Kerala, traditionally healthcare system in Kerala before the independence, it is good. It is not a very recent phenomena. Then quality of education in Himachal Pradesh, I have seen personally that for only three students, there is a primary school in Himachal Pradesh, Kangra area, Palanpur area, and there are 2 teachers and 1 non-teaching staff. So they are taking care of the primary education that in a justified manner, that it should be within 1 kilometer or less than 1.5 kilometers. So in that way. and the population is also less. So that is also an advantage for Himachal Pradesh. Then gender equality in Himachal Pradesh, traditionally gender equality is there. In Jammu and Kashmir, Ladakh region, it is already there. And for water, Andhra Pradesh and Chandigarh, for Andhra Pradesh, some of the government initiatives, because Andhra Pradesh used to face a drought situation. So for that, they have already taken up some of the very good rainwater harvesting strategies. Affordable and clean energy, solar power in Sikkim and Puducherry, particularly recent work in Tamil Nadu, in Chandigarh and Telangana, because they are highly urbanized. That is the real issue. In industrial innovation infrastructure, that is very much linked to education. So Kerala should come, and Gujarat, it is an industrial state because traditionally the communities of Gujarat, they are business oriented and industry oriented. Then reduced inequality in Telangana. I don't know what is the ground reality, but statistics, whatever comes from the Ministry of um, Statistics and Program Implementation, the statistics, the number says this. And again, the sustainable communities, it is the Himachal Pradesh, sustainable consumption, Nagaland and Chandigarh. Then climate action, Karnataka. Life below water, it is again Karnataka. Although in Karnataka, the water bodies are less comparatively other than Tamil Nadu or Odisha or West Bengal, like that. So life on land, Sikkim, Manipur and Mizoram, much of the Sikkim also, much of the forests are under protection and reserve for there, and population pressure is relatively less. So then strong institution supports where from this data have come. Maybe they are this may be debatable also at one point or other, but somehow the point is point. So this is the scenario. Now let us revisit the SDGs uh, for the 2030. Now, if we categorize all these sustainable development goals in a three tier, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, they are people centric. And then the 11 to 15, they are basically ecological. And 16 to 17, they are very much spiritual. And they are highly interacted. If they are not interacted and achieved together, then definitely we are not going to find the happiness. So let us see how the COVID is going to have its impact. That no poverty. The government's revenue has come down, and the manufacturing sector and Indian GDP is going to decrease. If you see the pre-lockdown period, our growth rate was roughly around 5 to 6%. And now the ratings are coming that maybe it is going to be less than 1% or maybe minus for the next 1 year. And huge subsidies have to be given for the rations and some freebies to our people so that there is no hunger, and by that definitely revenue loss is continuously going on, and if there is no revenue earned by the government, definitely there will be limited resources for allocation to education. But secondly, a relative cleanliness has come. In the industrial sector, due to lockdown, the industries are closed. The agriculture was shut, the activities was not going on, and vehicular emissions were also not there. But it is a very, very temporary phenomena. And if the vaccines comes, or we can manage the situation with the herd immunity, and also definitely everything will become normal. But the the pollution curve will increase and it will take from where it dips down. But whatever allocations were there in the environment sector, or for poverty alleviation, or for our Monrega and many other social development schemes, the allocation will be definitely less. And that will create a havoc on the marginal people, the poor people, the laborers, the marginal workers. They are going to be affected very, very high. And what they are going to do then? They will go to the forests, they will cut down, they will disturb the wildlife, because everyone requires some kind of sustainability for their immediate livelihood. And I think that in the near future, when the unlocking process will be full in operation, definitely those who have lost their jobs, immediately they are not going to be absorbed again. And in the new normal, the skill types are changing, so they are not going to find their jobs. So what they are going to do? They will be engaged more in agriculture, which is already overburdened, and disguised unemployment is there. So definitely they will uh, uh, create a huge pressure on the natural resources, the common property resources, and also some social disturbances are anticipated in future. So sustainable development that we targeted for the year 2030, that may be delayed to 2040. And these all these sustainable development issues can be taken together with the HDI, GDI, and all that. So these are not isolated phenomena. Now, final point is that we have to go for this one, this stop and go determinism. Earlier, when man was in the cradle of the nature, so they were controlled by the nature because certain options were given to man and they had to live on that only. Then, with the anthropocentric possibilism, the technologically abled man, the reason that says that anything, the controlling and administering the nature. Now we call that water is river administration. So space administration, NASA. So administer the space. That means we have a huge control on the space, on the rivers, on the oceans, on the wildlife, and all that. Now we have come to another situation that no, this is not unlimited. So there is a concept that sometimes some red signals comes, and at the red signal, if we don't check our balances and do something to look back, then definitely we are going to face a huge disaster from where we cannot thrive. So with these words, let me thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Satpati, for this illuminating presentation on a topic of utmost relevance. There has been a lot of questions that have come up. I would place some of them in front of you if you could kindly address to them. Sir, your lecture has touched on the discrepancies and paradoxes of development, and many of the questions that we have received express concern about the present economic situation, especially jobs, employment of daily wage workers, and policies adopted by the state and central government. We know about the tradition of geography of the radical geographers of the past who had suggested, who had focused on the geopolitics of development, and who had talked about the politics of urbanization that you have also touched on. Sir, can you suggest some rays of hope uh, in this particular aspect, especially in the Indian context? Do we need what are the steps that we need to take? Should we have a complete overhaul of our present system, or should we go for a more step-by-step graduated approach in adapting to the present situation?
Yes, the situation has given us a huge crisis. And the crisis came in a sudden, within a 6 months. And if you see the growth curves and all that, that has suddenly come down and everything has become disturbed. All the social order, the economic order, everything has come in a disturbed situation. So there should be planning, both ad hoc planning, short-term planning, and for long-term planning. And here, the central government must have a very, very responsible role to play. And that role is that it is not just toppling down the state governments or creating the pressure on some of the governments. This should not be the issue. The issue is that it is a pandemic and a crisis for the humanity and for the nation. We have certain advantages in India, that is the demographic advantage. And this advantage in the long run can create some good, definitely. Because already we have over pressure on our land, water, atmosphere, forest, and everywhere. So now it is the abadi, means the human beings. They should be trained in such a way that they can play a major role in the global market. And the global market is now highly interconnected. And in that way, if innovative learning can be imparted, and two prongs. One is that education, another one is skill. It is not that everyone should go for skill. Skill is required definitely, but that is for those students who cannot afford to education. Because if there is no education and people cannot challenge the governance, definitely anyone can misguide the society to destruction. So for the long-term planning, there should be a concerted effort by the state governments and central governments, keeping the philosophy of the federal structure intact. So that is for say 2030, like that. Even if there is no election, no problem. But the government should work in harmony with long-term planning, number one. Secondly, for the ad hoc, all our citizens, they are assets for our country. So no laborer, no worker, they should be allowed to die because of their poverty, hunger, or malnutrition, or lack of treatment. So that ad hoc situation, that should be continued. For if it is for another 1 year or 2 years, even if the economy comes down, that is not a problem. This should not be like China. I have heard that in China, when the economic resurgence took place since 1960s or 70s, a lot of its marginal population, they were allowed to die so that they could get the demographic advantage. So the same situation has come to India. And if the government, they say, yes, this population I don't require, and we only require a robust population of 70 crores, and others should die. That should not be the Indian philosophy of India. Because we are a multicultural country and our philosophy is pluralistic. And this ethos should be kept. A pluralistic society will be the key to our survival. So that is very, very important, and that should be respected by everyone.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your erudite words. Another last question that I would want to place before you. Sir, you have talked about the devastating effect of the Anthropocene, the impact of Anthropocene, and a question has come up about the effect of a crisis like COVID-19 on the flora and fauna. Your first slide also quite tellingly focused on the tragedy of such grave crisis that has come up on the flora and fauna of the world. I would want to place before you this question once again to elucidate a bit on this particular topic on the Anthropocene and its impact, and especially what is the course that the next generation should adopt towards correcting some of the steps that we had taken earlier.
Yes. So, over exploitation of the habitats that has led to habitat loss for the wildlife, and enough damage has already taken place in the forests, in the water aquatic environment, and everywhere. So whatever the forests are there, one example I can give from Amazon forest. Very recently there was forest fire. This fire was not at all a natural fire. That was for the forest wood mafia and some of the mining people, they were trying to clear the forest. So this has to be stopped because the tropical forests, they are the sinks of global carbon dioxide and many other pollutants, and the balancing the oxygen level, and also the precipitation and many other things, so temperature regime and many others. So now whatever the forest is there, we have to check that forest is remaining, then water quality, the cryosphere, the glaciers and all that. So if we don't increase right now the carbon dioxide, the global warming will increase for another happen for another 100 years or like that. So we have to carve down and alternative energy sources like solar energy and all that. That should be harnessed, and energy management at household level, at personal level, that should be encouraged. Now, regarding the habitats also, so urban forestry, urban agriculture, these are the new terminologies and new practices they are coming up. So urbanization will definitely go on. But the urban ecosystem, what was earlier completely artificial and just like concrete, now people are thinking about for decentralized urbanization. That means instead of a megacity or a megalopolis, there should be urban facilities in the rural areas. What Dr. Kalam was in his Vision 2020, he used to say that providing urban amenities in rural areas, Pura model. So that will definitely, it is not just providing them water, sanitation and all that. Job facilities. Suppose Khejuri College, they are educating some people, and I have gone through your website that you have a very unique subject combination. You have the physical education, this animal resources
We
like
have
that,
aquaculture management.
aquaculture management like that. So if that can be connected to the local productivity and employment generation schemes, definitely after education, some of your students, they will go for the local employment and local rural development. They are going to participate in that, and the revenue will be there only. It is not that the remittance of revenue. And what happens that it is also found that in Sundarban and in Minnapur areas, the students, the meritorious students, they come to the urban areas and they stay there in the urban areas and they just become urbanized. They have very limited contribution, and even whatever contribution they have in terms of the remittance of money, but that is very limited. So their knowledge is not actually being engaged in the rural development projects. So they should go for politics also in the locality. They should go for business, therefore go to entrepreneurship development and all that, and for in a cooperative manner, it is possible. And in that way, the natural resources can be saved. And in this age of telecommunication, it is possible to connect throughout the world with the products and services. That is possible.
Thanks, Professor Satpati, for your erudite elucidation. Our webinar has been a fruitful one, though with some technical lag. And all good things must have a conclusion. So we are drawing near a conclusion of our webinar. I would request Dr. Kuntal Thakur, convener of the webinar, assistant professor and head, Department of Physical Education, Khejuri College, to deliver a vote of thanks and hence conclude our present webinar.
রঙ্গিত রঙ্গিত
Yes,
হ্যালো
yes,
Hello,
Dr.
Rangeet.
Thakur, you're audible.
ডক্টর ঠাকুর নয়, আমি বলছি রঙ্গিত,
হ্যাঁ, প্রিন্সিপাল স্যার বলুন।
হ্যাঁ আমার আর একটা প্রশ্ন আছে প্রফেসর সৎপতির কাছে,
বলুন
যে
স্যার প্লিজ প্লেস করুন।
এই যে ওভার এক্সপ্লয়টেশন ন্যাচারাল ক্যালামিটি এসবের পাশাপাশি এই যে হচ্ছে এটা একটা বড় ফ্যাক্টর। তো এইটাকে কি করে এই যে নেচারকে রক্ষা করতে হবে?
হ্যাঁ স্যার, আরেকবার বলুন, শোনা গেল না, কেটে গেল।
বলছি যে ওভার এক্সপ্লয়টেশন অফ দি নেচার, শোনা যাচ্ছে? ওভার এক্সপ্লয়টেশন অফ দি নেচার, ন্যাচারাল ডিভাস্টেশন, এইসব তো রয়েছে, আর্বানাইজেশন এগুলো রয়েছে, কিন্তু আমার একটা মনে হয়েছে যে ইলিটারেসি একটা বড় কারণ। ইলিটারেসির কারণে যদি এই নেচার এক্সপ্লয়টেশন বা আরবানাইজেশনের মতো ব্যাপারগুলো ঘটে থাকে, তাহলে তার প্রতিকার হিসেবে আপনার সাজেশন কি মনে হয়?
না, এইখানে স্যার আমি একটু রিফার করছি, ইলিটারেসি আর আনএডুকেটেড ব্যাপারটা এক নয়। আমি দেখেছি নিজে, ইলিটারেট মানুষ তিনি এতটাই এডুকেটেড, আমি একজন সাঁওতালের কথা বলছি, জঙ্গল মহলের, তিনি লেখাপড়া মানে আমাদের সকল লেখাপড়া জানতেন না।
সেটা আমি আপনার সঙ্গে একমত।
হ্যাঁ, লেখাপড়া ব্যাপারটা আমি
না, আমি ডিগ্রির কথা বলছি না, আমি অ্যাকচুয়াল যে
আমি একটু এক্সপ্লেন করছি। ব্যাপারটা হচ্ছে, ধরুন এই যে লেখাপড়ার বিষয়টা, যখন ধরুন একজন ট্রাইব সে জঙ্গলে থাকে, তাকে রিসোর্স করার জন্য তাকে শিখতে হয় হান্টিং টেকনোলজি। তার মানে তীর ধনুক চালানো বা ওই যে শর্ট গানটা এইগুলো চালানো, বা কি করে ফলো করতে হয় শিকারকে, কি করে আমার জঙ্গল থেকে আহরণ করতে হয়, বা কিভাবে আমি আসছি। এইবারে ধরুন যখন কিনা আমাদের এরিয়ান যে শিক্ষা ব্যবস্থা এসে গেল, তখন তাদের সেই জায়গায় কালচারাল ফোল্ডে এসে সেটা শিখতে হলো। ইংরেজরা শিক্ষা ব্যবস্থা নিয়ে এলো, তাদের ইংরেজি শিখতে হলো। এইবার টেকনোলজি এসে গেল, মানে কম্পিউটার, তাকে কম্পিউটার শিখতে হবে। তার মানে আমরা এমন একটা শিক্ষা ব্যবস্থাকে ইম্পোর্ট করছি প্রতি মুহূর্তে, যাতে গ্লোবাল প্রেসারের সঙ্গে লিঙ্ক রাখার জন্য আমাকে ট্রান্সফর্ম হতে হচ্ছে। গ্লোবাল ট্রান্সফর্ম হচ্ছে না, এইখানে হচ্ছে বার্গেনিং পাওয়ার। একজন আমেরিকান সে চেঞ্জ হচ্ছে না, চেঞ্জ হচ্ছি আমি। আমার একটা কমিউনিটি, তাকে আমি চেঞ্জ হতে বলছি, তার কালচার চেঞ্জ হচ্ছে, তার ফুড হ্যাবিট চেঞ্জ হচ্ছে, তার সবকিছু চেঞ্জ হয়ে যাচ্ছে। এরপর যে ইস্যুটা আসছে যে এডুকেশন, যদি আমরা ইকোসিস্টেম পিপুলদের দেখি, এই আমাদের রামচন্দ্র গুহ উনি চমৎকার লিখেছেন বেশ কিছু জায়গায়, দেখবেন যে ইকোসিস্টেম পিপুল তারা কিন্তু সেক্রেট গ্রুপস এর ভেতরে হোক, বা তাদের যে সিড সংরক্ষণ করা, বা গাছ তারা বেশি না কাটা, যেগুলো পরিণত গাছ বা যেগুলো আর ইউজেবল নয়, গাছটা থাকবে না, মরে যাবে এমনিতেই, সেইগুলোই সংগ্রহ করে। কারণ দে টেক কেয়ার অফ দেয়ার লাইভলিহুড। কারণ ওরা জানে আজকে যদি শেষ করে দিই কালকে পাবো না। যেদিন থেকে আমার ফুড সিকিউরিটিটা এক্সটার্নাল সিচুয়েশন থেকে হয়ে গেল, মানে ধরুন আমি রেশনে চাল পাবো, 2 টাকা কেজি চাল পাবো, ফ্রিতে পাবো, অমুক পাবো, তমুক পাবো, এই যে পলিটিক্স অফ ডল পলিটিক্স, সেটাতে কি করে মানুষকে ইরেসপন্সিবল করে দেয়। এবং যারা ধরুন লিটারেট বাট হাফ এডুকেটেড আমি কাদের বলছি, যারা নট রেসপন্সিবল টু দেয়ার লোকাল এনভায়রনমেন্ট, লোকাল সোসাইটি, তারা কি করে ফর কুইক মানি তারা নিজেরই পা কাটে। যেমন ধরুন আমি আপনাকে একটা কংক্রিট এক্সাম্পল দিচ্ছি, যে কোকা কোলার বিজনেস আন্টার্কটিকাতেও হতে পারে, কিন্তু ডাবের ব্যবসা আপনার খেজুরিতেও হবে না, তাই না? কেন? বা আপনার লোকাল তরমুজ, তার থেকে আমি একটা তরমুজ বা তরমুজা করলাম, বা গুড় থেকে আমি পানীয় তৈরি করলাম, সেটা কেউ খাবেও না, কিনবেও না, সবাই কি করবে? থামস আপ খাবে। হু ইজ গেটিং দ্য প্রফিট? আমাদেরই ছেলেকে দিয়ে, আমাদেরই দিয়ে বিক্রি করিয়ে আমাদেরই কাছ থেকে টাকাটা নিয়ে যাচ্ছে। কিন্তু আমাদের ছেলেরা মিনস অফ এক্সপ্লয়টেশন হয়ে যাচ্ছে এবং তারা ভাবছে আমি বড় একটা কোম্পানিতে চাকরি করছি। কিন্তু তারা তো অন্যভাবে ভাবতো জিনিসটাকে, যে আমার ইকোসিস্টেমের প্রতি, আমার লোকাল সোসাইটির প্রতি আমার একটা দায়বদ্ধতা আছে। সেটাকে বলা যেতে পারে নলেজ বা এডুকেটেড। সে কিন্তু শুধু লিটারেট নয়, এডুকেটেড। এবং সে তার এডুকেশনটাকে যদি ট্রান্সলেট করতে পারে, তবেই আমি বলবো ট্রু এডুকেটেড। তো এই জায়গায় একটা গ্যাপ তৈরি হচ্ছে এবং আমাদের যে এডুকেশন সিস্টেম, যে সিলেবাস বা যে কারিকুলাম ফ্রেমওয়ার্ক আছে, সেই ফ্রেমওয়ার্কটা ওভারলি ডিক্টেটেড বাই দ্য হায়ারার্কি, উপর লেভেল থেকে। আমার সাপোজ একটা দীঘা কোস্টের ছেলের প্রাইমারি এডুকেশনে তার জানার দরকার নেই যে লাদাখে কত বরফ পড়ে, কিন্তু সে শিখছে। লাদাখের একটা প্রাইমারি স্কুলের ছেলের জানার দরকার নেই যে দীঘাতে একটা মাছ কিরকম বড় ধরা পড়েছে। অত ডিটেল, এই ডিটেলিংটা আমরা কি করছি? সবকিছু বাচ্চাদের চাপিয়ে দিচ্ছি। সো জিওগ্রাফিক্যালিটি অ্যান্ড লোকাল কনটেক্সচুয়ালিটি ইজ ভেরি ভেরি ইম্পর্টেন্ট। যে কোনো একটা ডিজাস্টার, ধরুন সাইক্লোন যেখানে হয়, সেখানকার ছেলেমেয়েরা সাইক্লোন পড়ছে না, জানছে না, বুঝছে না। অথচ তাকে আমি শেখাচ্ছি যে ল্যান্ডস্লাইড কি করে হচ্ছে বা ইত্যাদি হচ্ছে। আরে ল্যান্ডস্লাইড যেখানে হয় সেখানে লোকেরা জানুক ভালো করে। এখানে ল্যান্ডস্লাইড একটা
তাহলে এই যে লোকাল নিড বেস যে এডুকেশন, আমাদের টোটাল তাহলে এডুকেশন সিস্টেমটা আমরা বলতে পারি যে রং। লোকাল নিড বেসড এডুকেশন প্রয়োজন এবং সেটার ইমপ্লিকেশন কিরকম হবে, কিভাবে আমরা সেটা করতে পারি?
একটা ছোট্ট জিনিস বলি, আমাদের সিবিসিএস চালু হয়েছে। সিবিসিএস এ যে চয়েস বেসড ইয়েগুলো এসছে, মডিউলগুলো বা ডিসিপ্লিনগুলো এসছে, আমাদের ইন্ডিয়াতে প্রত্যেক বছর প্রায় ধরে নিন 2 থেকে 2.5 কোটি স্টুডেন্ট ফার্স্ট ইয়ারে ঢোকে। সেখানে তাদের আমি কোর্স দিচ্ছি কতগুলো? বড় জোর 100টা বা 200টা। আমাদের 1000 থেকে 2000 কোর্স থাকা দরকার ছিল। এমন এমন কোর্স, যে কোর্সগুলো লোকাল বা রিজিওনাল রেলিভেন্স আছে। কারণ সবাই বড় হয়ে ইকোনমিস্ট হবে না, সবাই অমর্ত্য সেন, অভিজিৎ ব্যানার্জি হওয়ার দরকার নেই। Many of them should be local economists, agricultural economists at local level. কেন সে মেদিনীপুরের ইকোনমিস্ট হবে না, তমলুকের ইকোনমিস্ট হবে না? এই জায়গাটা ভাবতে হবে আমাদের। কাস্টমাইজেশন অফ দ্য সিলেবাস এন্ড কারিকুলাম এট লোকাল লেভেল, ইট ইজ ভেরি মাচ রিকোয়ার্ড।
হ্যাঁ, এটাই জাস্ট আমি বলতে চাইছিলাম যে সুন্দরবনের ভালোটা সুন্দরবন এলাকার মানুষকে বোঝাতে হবে এবং তারাই রক্ষা করতে পারে। তাছাড়া অন্য জায়গায় লোক খুব বেশি সেটা করতে পারে না। এই আর কি। এখন দেখা যাচ্ছে আমাদের এখানে উপকূলবর্তী এলাকায় দেখতে পাচ্ছি যে ট্র্যাডিশনাল ফিশারম্যানরা আর ওখানে নেই, সমুদ্রে নেই। এখন যাচ্ছে কি কলকাতা থেকে বা বাইরের থেকে ব্যবসায়ীরা এসে তারা ট্রলার কিনে নন ফিশারম্যানদের পাঠিয়ে দিচ্ছে। ফলে তাদের ওই মাছের সিডসের প্রতি তাদের কোনো মায়া মমতা নেই, তারা শুধু ইলিশ ধরবে, বাদ বাকি
রেসপন্সিবল কথাটা আমি বলতে চাইছি বারবার, রেসপন্সিবল।
A wonderful dialogue has taken place just now between Professor Satpati and our respected principal, sir, which again highlights on the importance of education, especially on the limitations of Eurocentric hierarchical models of education and the desperate need to adapt models that would focus on local needs and demands. This is an extremely relevant note with which we would like to conclude our present webinar. I once again thank Dr. Satpati for giving us this opportunity to listen to him and to gain knowledge from him. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Professor Satpati.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. I would now request Dr. Kuntal Thakur, convener of the webinar, to deliver a vote of thanks and draw this to conclusion. Dr. Thakur.
I am audible.
Yes, you are audible.
Ah, Good evening, everybody. I feel honored and privileged to get an opportunity as the convener of this webinar to propose a vote of thanks. At first, I am indebted to Mr. Ranajit Mondal, the Honorable President of the governing body of Khejuri College and the MLA of Khejuri constituency, as well as the patron of this webinar for his inspiring support. My deep regards to Dr. Ashim Kumar Manna, Principal of Khejuri College and Chairman of this webinar, for his encouragement, guidance, and cooperation in organizing this webinar. I wish to express my sincere gratitude and thanks to our eminent speaker, Dr. Satpati, Professor of Geography and Director of UGC HRDC, University of Calcutta, for his consent to deliver the speech in spite of his extremely busy schedule. We are grateful to you, sir. I am thankful to all the respected members of governing body of Khejuri College for their cooperation. My heartfelt thanks to Dr. Gautam Dandoka, Associate Professor of Bengali and IPAC Coordinator of Khejuri College, for his inspiration in the academic activities in our college. Thank you, Gautam sir. Thank you, your guidance. মানে আমরা মনে করি সবসময় তোমার গাইডেন্স আমরা পাবো. We get always your guidance. I would like to give my sincere thanks to Dr. Rangeet Sengupta, Assistant Professor of English and Joint Convener of this webinar, for his support and playing a major role in materializing the webinar in its present form. I am thankful to my colleagues, teaching and non-teaching staff, and the member of the Students' Union for extending their helping hand in this effort. And I also convey my thanks to Mr. Rajkumar Maiti for his technical support. Last but not least, I would like to thank all the participants because the success of this seminar is not possible without you. Thank you again. Thank you all. Thank you, Rangeet sir.
Thank you. So we herein conclude the seminar. Please fill the feedback form, all of you. All right.
Thank you. So I'm leaving.
Thank you, sir.
Principal
Thank you, sir.
সবাই ভালো থাকবেন।
Thank you, Satpati sir. Thank you.
নমস্কার।